So, thank you for joining us in another session on India with DBS. Today, I'm very pleased to be joined by Terence Young, who's an old friend, who's the global head of sales for DBS, who's responsible for international sales, and at the moment especially focused on bringing international companies into Asia. As you may have noticed, as you're very perceptive, we're actually meeting up at the Eurofinance conference in Copenhagen, which is always a great place to meet old friends. We're not going to tell you how old friends we are, but we go back a long time. So, Terence, thanks for taking the time to join us. We've already done a couple of sessions on India where we've talked about the massive growth opportunities, the huge improvement in cash management, and I'd like to spend a bit of time today going through why you think this is so important. And in particular, so far we've been talking about services and taxes and so on. You've gotten a special focus on manufacturing. Would you care to take us through that? And in particular, I know one area of concern to everybody is environmental and safety, and that hasn't always been a strong point in India. So maybe you could start off.
Sure. I think Make in India has certainly come at a time where sustainability objectives have become very, very important to most of the buyers around the world in the international markets. And that's very well recognized by the Indian corporate community as well as the regulatory authorities. Today, the SEBI, which is the stock exchange regulators, they have mandated over 1,000 top companies that are listed have to have environmental standards published, reported, and that has seen a huge take-up, voluntary take-up. Over 80% volunteer their own information and measurement, and I think that progress has permeated across the wider community. There are many industry alliances, commercial industries that are bringing together partners on the tech side, engineering side, measurement partners, which 3 years ago were not even as widespread. So that creates an ecosystem which allows companies to work on environmental advances, measured, reported, and in many ways this is happening industry by industry. We see it a lot in the auto industry, we see it in the healthcare and pharmaceutical industry, which are two of the very attractive businesses that India has been looking to promote. And more so now with the technology and industry and infrastructure being built out, that's also going to be a beneficiary.
That's fascinating, and I think we agree this is a big change from how it used to be. Now, the other side to that is infrastructure. Again, because a lot of energy gets burned, wasted in infrastructure that doesn't function, and India has had a problem there.
Right.
I believe that's also changing, right?
Right. So Make in India has meant a huge shift in the infrastructure expansion in India. Today, the rail network has expanded very significantly. More rail is being laid at a faster pace across India. Roads, ports, each to support the infrastructure around the export orientation of the company, of each of the companies that are in industrial estates. What we find is that the road infrastructure has increased 1.5 times in the last 10 years. Port infrastructure has also expanded to be more specialized to the type of goods which are being produced, being imported as well as exported. There's a rapid expansion in airports. Today 150 plus airports exist when 10 years ago there were only 65. So that's more than doubling of the number of
sorry
airports.
if I may, what about power? Because power used to come from coal.
Absolutely. In renewable energy, we've seen a very large shift in investment, and that is illustrated by the solar capacity in the last 10 years increasing over 30 times.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's very, very significant. But it also brings in a huge opportunity for infrastructure around more grids, battery storage, electricity storage, because India is a vast country, right? And you do need to get power generation from renewables from one part of the country to the next, one state to the next, into the hinterlands, and so on. So there are a lot of opportunities in infrastructure and in renewables.
So that says that there's big opportunities in building the infrastructure.
That's correct.
India is already the world's third or fourth largest economy, and it's planning on doubling in size. So there's a big opportunity in the domestic market. So all of this says there's a lot going on. Now, the other thing which I think you've mentioned in the past is using India's manufacturing base. Now, I think that's a big change, and you're seeing it happen already, right?
Yes, we are seeing that so many industries are starting to find, whether that's for China Plus One, right, in terms of diversification, or just looking to address the domestic dividend from the youthful base of the Indian population, the increased middle class, the consumption capacity within India, both the export and the domestic economy growth really does provide a strong foundation. There are not that many countries of scale, certainly of the scale of India, that one can look at to participate in this sort of growth.
Well, I think there's only one with a comparable population, right? So, am I right in thinking this is all happening within the context of a very well-defined plan, that it's a comprehensive plan, they're not leaving these things to chance?
That's correct. I do think the fact that foundational structural investments are being made, we've talked about infrastructure, we've talked about energy sourcing, which are very important, but also in the context of sustainable production, all the way to e-waste and producers having responsibility for the recycling and so on. All of these are standards which have been complementary towards getting India from what may have been seen as an old economy into a very relevant new economy, new producing economy.
And not only old, but also difficult, and they're working a lot on making it easier. Yeah. So thanks, Terence. This has been great. I could listen to you for hours. Unfortunately, we need to keep this short. One last question, though, is that you're clearly of the view that India is a great place to invest. The obvious question, I think, to most people is DBS. Why would you use a Singaporean bank in India?
Sure. Sure. Well, for us at DBS, Asia Pacific is very much our entire economy of focus, and in our pursuit of trying to be relevant to a production uplift in India that we've spoken of, I think it's really complementary that we bring capabilities in digitalization, in sustainability to bear in markets like India. And in many ways, we have invested as a bank in India very significantly, both as a local subsidiary, we've localized, we are recognized by the government as one of the few foreign banks that they would entrust, even with tax collections and other aspects, of as if we were a local bank, right? And I think it's a market of scale. We've invested in scale. It's one of our largest staff base that we have in India, both in the front office as well as in technology. And I think we remain very committed to an Indian growth and Indian investment.
And we've seen some of your excellent staff in the other videos. So you're not just recommending investing, you're doing it. Terence,
yes, correct.
Wish you all the best and many thanks for your time.
And thank you for having us.